Hi, my name is Tracy Truax, and it's actually not January 30th. That's when I was working on this presentation. It's February 1st. Yay! And this is my presentation on flipped classroom. So, kind of giving away which tool I'm going to use right off the bat. So the goals for this presentation, I'm just highlighting what it is that we're supposed to do. I'm going to introduce and describe the instructional model for this lesson, apply the connection between the model and universal design for learning, and then the majority of this presentation will be the demonstration of the implementation of a lesson using this model. I'm actually kind of excited about this model because I'm an AP teacher, and if any of you are there are AP teachers, you know our biggest obstacle in life is time. And so, if there is a way that I can somehow provide opportunities for my students to learn outside of the classroom and then do some of the really cool application activities inside of the classroom, I am all for it. So this is for my AP Human Geography class. It's for the Ag unit. It is literally my favorite unit to teach. I'm pretty sure I was a farmer in a previous life. So most of the work that I've actually done for this course has been for this unit because we actually start this unit next Monday. So one more week in the political geo unit, and then Ag is next. I'm going to use the blended learning model, the flipped classroom substitution method. We don't have blended in our school. We actually do have blended in our school, but AP Human is not one of the blended classrooms. So I'm going to sort of modify it in a way that makes sense for my class. So I always look for the reason for why we're doing some of these new instructional designs or instructional models. And I came across this quote by Raina that I really liked. And she said, or he said, using a flipped classroom provides the flexibility to engage with the information before entering the classroom and fosters individual learning, collaborative effort, social interaction, reflection, and independent learning skills. So I certainly think that flipped classrooms provide students with opportunities to engage with the information before the classroom. But I really like the idea of the independent learning skills as well. Some of those soft skills I think are really important to uh, help our students figure out how to do, like, how do I time manage, and how do I do this activity and set goals for myself, and so on and so forth. And then when it comes to the collaborative and social interaction and reflective part of the concept of using flipped classrooms, that's where I see this really beneficial in terms of what's happening in the classroom on the next day. The whole, like, to have the kids learn outside and then do the practice in class is really appealing to me, actually. So connections to UDL, I just want to highlight this, and then I hope that you see evidence of this throughout the lesson, which I'm going to explain after this slide. So in terms of representation, the outside learning happens with students engaging with the multimedia slide presentation. They're encouraged to interact with the topic in multiple ways, and my hope is to capitalize on the multimodal theory of learning. In terms of action and expression, students are provided with extended time to engage with the material. This is something that I think is really interesting about blended learning in general. In a true blended environment, students are supposed to be doing work that equals the same amount of time that they would be given in class to do similar work. So I teach at a school with 47-minute periods. Therefore, if I was doing a blended activity, I should provide students with an activity that lasted for 47 minutes. Now, I don't have a blended classroom, so the way in which I am adapting or accommodating students is just giving them more time. So students will actually have 3 days to complete this activity. But they still have to manage the information they collect. They have to set goals for completion. They have to pay attention to all the other things that are going on in their lives and set aside time to complete this activity. In terms of engagement, I feel real lucky here. AP Human is just naturally engaging. All of the things that we talk about are actually happening in the real world right now. And so in this particular activity, in encouraging active participation to explore their own thinking on some topics that they have never been exposed to before. I teach in a suburban school, which might as well be urban, and our kids do not have a lot of connection with agriculture. So I try in this unit to provide them with so many opportunities to engage with topics that they are not familiar with, and this will be an example of that. It is authentic, and on the day of the in-class activity, it is really collaborative. Okay, so it sounds silly, but my Bible for this class is really the course articulation, the CED, which was recently, I don't, not redone necessarily, but it was revised. And so what you're seeing on this screen right here, and maybe I'll get the point out at this point. So what you're seeing on this screen are two of the enduring understanding learning targets and essential knowledge. So this is one and this is the other. And so these are the two essential learning objectives and knowledge that I will be uh, not me, that students will be engaging with. So learning objectives are pretty vague. So really this is what I'm supposed to be teaching students, and you're going to see how they learn about climatic regions, intensive and extensive farming practices, and then over here we're talking about subsistence and commercial practices of agriculture. And again, like, my kids don't know a heck of a lot about any of this stuff, so I have to get kind of creative when I'm teaching it. The other thing that changed for us this year, and I'll let the pointer go away for a minute here, are the two skills that you see at the bottom. So College Board is really emphasizing these skills. So I have to be aware of not only what I'm supposed to be teaching them, but also I have to be aware of the fact that they should be able to do these skills at the end of each one of these learning targets. It's complicated sometimes. All right, so here's the lesson plan. This is what students are doing at home. So they're examining agricultural production regions. The essential question is, how do people's culture and the resources available to them influence how they grow food? So you can see just sort of the basic directions there. There's a reading, there's videos, they have to take notes on both. And then my favorite part is that they have to complete a regional coloring paper in a minute. So every time I give students anything in this class, it is always connected to learning objectives and key vocabulary. We are a vocabulary intensive class, and so students need to know what it is that they're learning about, and then these slides, and you'll see this again in the in-class activity, these slides become essentially their study guides if they're using them correctly. So the first thing that I want students to do is go to a website. And I'm not going to click on the website because it's just a really basic background information kind of website on the difference between intensive and extensive farming. The idea here is that students start with a T-chart, and they, in their notebooks, they create this T-chart and they do a comparison between intensive and extensive farming. And I have to point out that I'm really intentional about the verbs here, because there are 5 action verbs that students have to be really familiar with that comprise the learning targets, their FRQ, the free response question prompts, etc. So I'm always careful about choosing the words that they're going to see in May and throughout the course. So this is a compare intensive to extensive farming. And then what students don't know, but I don't know, maybe it's subliminal messaging on my part, is that these two pictures represent examples of the difference between intensive and extensive farming. Okay, so then the next thing that I want students to do is to learn a little bit more about subsistence agriculture and its connection to intensive farming, and then the types of intensive subsistence agriculture that they will have to know. And so this video explains those things. So the idea is that they're also defining, as it says up here, which is another one of their action verbs, subsistence agriculture, and then they're describing, again, another one of their action verbs, the examples that are provided in the video. The same thing happens with commercial agriculture. So with commercial agriculture, they're looking at what is it, and then they're looking at the examples that are provided. Now at the end of this, and this is what I'm really excited about, because I think I don't know if you're all familiar with, but geography and coloring kind of go hand in hand. So anytime I can get the kids with their colored pencils, which is something that they actually get on the first day of class with materials, buy some colored pencils, we're going to use them. Anytime I can get them coloring, I think it's a really good tool, because it engages their brain in a little bit different way. As they're coloring, they're learning about the regions as well, the agriculture regions. These are the regions that I'm talking about right here. And so this is essentially like a paint by number. So the idea is, and it's barely noticeable, but nomadic herding is J. And so if they look over here and they find all the J's and they say, okay, I'm going to make nomadic herding tan, they'll color this tan because they have to make a key, and then they'll color all of the areas in the world that practice nomadic herding tan. And then at the end of this, they've created a coloring page of the agricultural regions and major land uses of the entire world. Now, that is the end of the outside work that I'm asking students to do, the blended part of this lesson. And again, I'm giving students 3 days to do this. I should have mentioned before that the videos are between like 7 and 9 minutes. And not the hardest, this is not a hard thing for them to do color, but it does take some time. And so I really think 3 days is probably an appropriate amount of time to give students to complete this activity. All right, so this is what students would see at the in-class day of the blended lesson. And so now they're going to use what they learned over the last 3 days out of class to apply what they've learned. And application is a really important skill in this class. You can memorize all the verbs, you can memorize all the terms that you want, all the concepts, all the geographers, but if you cannot apply it to the real world, you are not going to be successful in this class. So application is what I do probably most of all. And I try to do this with as many real world examples as possible. So when students walk into the classroom, this is what they're going to see. This is the daily agenda, the date, whatever day we would be doing this. The activity up here, you can see this is what we're doing, the application of agricultural regions. Their homework is always on this first slide. So when they come in, they've gotten into the habit, especially now that we're in February, that they should jot this down. It's something that we practice as a skill. It's something that's incredibly important for AP students to make sure that they're keeping track of all of the things that they need to do. And for homework, this is really extending the learning. And this is my check on have they actually sort of learned what they needed to learn. I am like, embrace my dad jokes. This is kind of the thing, my shtick, I guess. And in ag, there's just so many good, silly dad jokes. So there's always one on the first slide when kids walk in. Again, learning targets. So this is a running PowerPoint or Google slide presentation, I should say. All of our Google slide presentations are actually on our class website, so students have access to this. So I would, kind of talk about what we're doing. And if you notice here, all the learning targets that were present on the out of class activity are not here. So we're focusing on just two, analyzing the economic forces that influence agriculture, and then explaining the agricultural regions themselves. Making sure that they can do that. The physical geography to agriculture will happen in the extension at the end of this lesson. Okay, so I always start off with just a little review. Intensive versus extensive agriculture can be a struggle for kids sometimes. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we actually begin the activity. And this is also the time in which I would answer questions on the out of class, the blended part of the class. Commercial versus subsistence students get right away, so I'm not as concerned about that, but this I am. And so this is kind of the Q&A portion of the class. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is that as students walk into class, they are already grouped. The tables are set up so that they are in groups of 4. And so students know that this is going to be an interactive collaborative activity. And so they just kind of self-sort. They'll just sit wherever they want to. And, I trust them to work with their teammates. They can kind of choose who they want to work with. So once they sit down, we do this activity, and then I explain what it is that we're doing for the day. So this is the activity. So students are given this. This is the very first, I should say this handout is what I explain in terms of what it is that they're doing. So it's a little bit hard for me to explain without both things on the slide, so I'll do my best here. So in essence, I'm giving them, as you see here, all of the different types of agricultural regions. And it's labeled A through L, as you can see. And their task is to categorize each of these regions in these tables up here. Now, they do that because they're provided with some images, and I'll show you that on the next slide. But what I really like about this is this part right here. So once they categorize each of the regions, then they sort of guess the location. And remember, they had to create that coloring page. So they already know basically where each of the regions are being practiced. And then the idea is for them to use context clues from the images to apply their knowledge of culture development and agriculture to make educated guesses about where these particular regions are in the world. So this is an example of what students might have in terms of pictures. And you can see that there's a set of four, a set of four, a set of four, a set of four. So this is number 3. So students will learn or use what they learned about each one of the regions, and they'll have a conversation about what could this region be? What do you notice? Now, my goal is for kids to talk about, okay, well, it looks like it's corn, but it definitely doesn't look like it's in a developed country because they're using hand tools. And in this small area, there's already 2 people who are working the land, right? You would not see that in a place like the United States. So they should automatically start thinking about this perhaps as maybe subsistence agriculture, because you're not going to see subsistence agriculture in developed countries. And then, okay, well, what are my examples of subsistence agriculture that makes sense? So the conversation that they have, I think, is very interesting. And you can see, like, here's a flower. So what kind of agricultural practice is that? Like, students don't realize that horticulture is also an agricultural practice. The growing of flowers is actually an agricultural practice. So they have to have a conversation about which one of the regions. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little confusing here. Agricultural regions different than geographic regions. So what region, agriculturally speaking, would this be? Same with the cows, and same with, this is interesting, having students kind of talk about what they're seeing here, right? They learn about terracing being most used in the cultivation of rice. And so they not only need to know about, wet rice dominant agricultural practices, but they also have to understand how humans are manipulating the environment in order to make this particular agricultural region make sense for this particular place. Now, at the end of this, there's a lot of lively conversation, and my goal is to walk around and sort of ask kids pointed questions like, what is this? It's a flower. Or, yeah, you see a cow here, but what kind of cow does this look like? Is this a meat cow, a dairy cow? How do you know? And I sort of ask those pointed questions to clarify kids' thinking. But really, it's the kids that are having the conversation about these images, and they're really interesting conversations in terms of their interpretation. So it's kind of fun for me to walk around and see what it is that they're talking about. But at the end, I do actually give them the answers, and we talk about anything that they need clarification on. And remember, these letters here, I'll kind of go back so you can see it, refer to these agricultural regions right here, these production regions. And then it's fun to see their guesses on location. I always tell them that if they get, and you can see sometimes I give them the country, sometimes it's a region. And so it's fun that, when students get things correct, like they always get Wisconsin for some reason, I don't know. And they cheer, and it's kind of cute to see how they process through the locations. And their thinking behind how they process is really important to me as a. All right, so the last part of this activity is them to really kind of understand the economic aspect of this. So I give them scenarios, and they actually have a handout. So they're working on this handout. I might put this up on the front of the board. I project this, I should say, and I'll read through it. And then as a group, they have to talk about which agricultural practice they think would be best given this particular situation. And there's not really, and this is maybe what I love about this, is that there's not really a right or wrong answer. I'm really looking for students to be thoughtful and to be able to explain and rationalize their decision, and for them to make connections to previous units. So let me just explain what I'm talking about. The newly industrialized nation, so this is a NIC. This comes from our economic development unit. We're talking about stage 3 of the DTM. This comes from our population unit. We also, like, in terms of rural agriculture, like this, they're working in the primary economic sector, again, from the economic unit. So at this point in the school year, I have another task, and that is to make students see the connections between these units. So this is such a fun class to teach because the units don't end when they end. They continually cycle back. It's almost like a spring. That was the first time that I heard what the heck this class was all about. Somebody explained that the units tend to spiral back onto each other, and they really like together help students understand in a very sophisticated way the world in which they live. There are four scenarios, and I'm not going to kind of go through and read them all, but you can see that they're quite different. So this is a stage 3 country, this is a stage 4 country. Physiological density is a vocab term that they should remember from unit 2. If they don't, then that becomes kind of a fun conversation. You should remember this, pull out your notes, where can you get the information if you didn't know it. So I'm teaching those soft skills as well. Low developing country, minimal tools. You can kind of see how each situation is quite different. And so you can imagine that the discussion between the groups or within the groups and then between the groups is varied. And it's kind of fun. Okay, so at the end of this, and if there's time at the end of class, I have students take a fun quiz. It's always a fun quiz, but it also provides me with some pretty important information. So let me click on this so you can see what it is that they have to do. So this is an agricultural image activity, and they have to use their knowledge of agriculture, and they have to choose the answer that best represents each image. So we're looking at hunter-gatherer right here. That's what's important to us. And if the students did what they were supposed to do correctly, then they would automatically choose option 1. And then because this is a Google form, I get the answers after they're done. And there's just a ton of images, and again, this is kind of interesting because I didn't really give like the foundation, like when are students actually doing this in class. This is about halfway through the unit that they're doing it, so they have already some good, solid foundational knowledge on agriculture just more generally, and some of the contemporary agricultural trends that we see over time. So this is a feedlot, and we will have watched Food Inc., so they will have seen this feedlot in that film. So there's a lot of opportunities to apply their learning. There's also, these are kind of fun too, these maps. So one thing that I had to do in unit 1 was to do like a regional map analysis. And so they actually, way back in the beginning of the school year, had to create where, like, here's the United States, shade the corn belt, where's the wheat belt, where's the sun belt. So it was all of these belts. And so this is a fun way to revisit, stuff that they learned back in August. And then they kind of freak out. They're like, oh, I remember the belts, which is kind of fun. Okay, so the final thing that I want to share with you is the extension. And so this is the homework assignment again. This is what the students see on the very first slide. And the purpose of this homework assignment is to extend the learning. So I really am looking for a way to make sure that students can make connections between the agricultural regional practices and the physical environment. And it just sort of synthesizes their learning, and then it also extends it a little bit. So these climate maps, the climactic regions, so you have soil, and you have the Köppen climate map right here. And then you also have the precipitation map. And so I want them to use their coloring page along with these maps. And then the idea is that they then, I'll show you this in just a minute, that they review their learning. So again, it gives them multiple opportunities to interact with the same concepts. These concepts tend to be really challenging for students because they don't have a lot of connection to agriculture. So I'm looking for them to define the 4 terms again. I'm looking for them to maybe identify the region of the world based on their coloring page, identify whether this particular agricultural region is intensive or extensive, is it commercial or subsistence, and then this area, I should say, and then the final area, so the far left, the bioclimatic zone, is for them to make a connection between the crop, soil, and climate and the particular region. So this is where they're using those climate maps. And then this whole thing ends with the reflection questions explain the connection between the physical geography and agricultural practices. Identify the agricultural region that shares the same name with their bioclimatic zone. This one is just Mediterranean because there's a Mediterranean zone, but then there's also Mediterranean agriculture. I'm not so sure how relevant and important that is. It's more like a close reading activity. I just want to make sure that they're really thinking about what it is that they're looking at. Okay. And that is it. That is my blended learning lesson. Here are my references. And I'm going to attach both this presentation as a video and this presentation as a Google Slide presentation, because if there's any other AP Human people out there, or just anybody that's interested in agricultural geography, I have hyperlinked all of the documents that you might, if you're interested, look at or share with colleagues that maybe teach this class if you thought that this was an interesting lesson. So thanks for watching.